All right. This is going to be a book report of sorts for the book Hard Times Create Strong Men by Stefan Aarnio. He's a Canadian writer. I'm mainly writing this because no one else has made a book report of sorts for this book, and I believe it deserves one. The closest thing to it would be like his little, in the middle video here, he makes a trailer for the book of sorts. The bottom video is an impulsive video. It's basically an interview between the author and Logan Paul. It's also very well done. The co-star and the author go on tangents together that make the video worthwhile. And then the top video is the first search result that comes up. It's mainly a podcast between the author and whoever this Bulldog Mindset guy is. And the video is okay. It's more of like a real estate type deal. He made his money on real estate, so he talks about flipping houses and stuff, which kind of takes away from the book itself, which I believe deserves to be talked about in its own right. Now, this video is not a book summary, but more so a book recommendation. It is a beefy boy, but it's packed full of information that I believe needs to be passed around. The book is comprised of 5 parts. Ground Zero is kind of his prelogue. He talks about why he wrote the book, and then it gets into 4 parts after that. Money and work, sex, women, children, and family, religion, God, and the new gods of men, money and government, politics, a system of organized hate and systemic extinction of the West. He wants to drive home this poem that hard times create strong men create good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times, to which the cycle would start again. He, as a millennial, mentions often that millennials are the weak men that are going to create the hard times, which is why before he died of untimely cancer, he preached that the next generation will become the strong men, or the millennials will become the strong men from the hard times. I think that's it. I think the millennials will become the strong men through hard times. He immediately, after discussing that poem, goes into money and work, where he talks about video games and, just mainly gets to the point that video games are pointless, and that it gives the illusion that men are solving problems, which is the main function of the male mind, is to solve problems. He gets into other things, but that's the main point. This is more of a snowball kind of book, where as it goes on, it gets better and better. This was definitely the start of the snowball, though. Men solve problems. It's a good chapter, though. Part 2 is about sex, women, children, and family. It starts right out the gate on chapter 11, saying what women really want. It's actually decent advice. Very good advice. He's also very comedic throughout the book. He also touches on pornography and what a fun woman is versus a marriageable woman. Sets clear, defined roles for the family and traditional values. I think it's a very important chapter. It was definitely instantly just as important as the last chapter, but definitely building on the snowball. Very good chapter. Tells you about just everything you need to know about women if you have issues with women as a man. Part 3 is about religion, God, and the new gods of men, money and government. He talks about America being founded on Christianity and Judaism, and also talks about the gold standard and such, which I did pull from a little bit when talking about my self-development. I talked about this book over here, also in my money video. I talked about the gold standard versus inflation, he also mentions this in the book again, which is another good opportunity to learn some. Over on the left, he also talks about schools. Now, I've seen other people try to tackle this topic of why our degrees are becoming worth less and less, and how, as a whole,
your schools and your teachers are failing you.
Now, a lot of people will be expressive on the internet like that, but Stefan Aarnio does a great job of defining how it can improve and why it has gone bad in the first place in the book, in this chapter. Another great chapter. And in this last chapter of politics, a system of organized hate and the systemic extinction of the West, this is probably the most influential thing I've read in a while. It's a great chapter. It starts right out the gate with an awesome quote. In the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king, and in the darkness, the man with the candle is an easy target. Now, Michael Grant is clearly talking about knowledge in this case, where in an information age that we are living in today, an overabundance of information is pretty much making us blind, and anyone who does hold any truth is an easy target today. A powerful theme within this book, he touches on Donald Trump and modern issues that are happening. He speaks more so on the 2016 election for Donald Trump, as this book was published in 2019, and he also recently had died of cancer, because he did have his own YouTube channel, which had success. I could show it off here. Here we go. This YouTube channel, I clicked around on it as I was reading the book. It is also very good. He revisits a lot of the topics I'm talking about. Also delves deep into real estate, because he's a real estate man. And he also goes into talking about the Greek Empire, the Roman Empire, and the British Empire individually, and then comparatively to the American Empire that we live in today. And then furthermore, also talks about the best part of the book by far, the real takeaway for me at least, was when he started talking about Russia. More specifically, the KGB, whom Putin was a KGB officer before he took office in Russia. So as you're taking in all of this, please realize that he is the head of Russia right now. Now, the topic being discussed is subversion, specifically in the United States. Now, this was an interview in 1984.
Was born in 1930.
Oh.
He was the son of a high-ranking Soviet Army officer. He was educated in the elite schools inside the Soviet Union and became an expert in Indian culture and Indian languages. He had an outstanding career with Novosti, which was and still is, I should say, the press arm or the press agency of the Soviet Union. It turns out that this is also a front for the KGB. He escaped to the West in 1970 after becoming totally disgusted with the Soviet system, and he did this at great risk to his life. He certainly is one of the world's outstanding experts on the subject of Soviet propaganda and disinformation and active measures. Well, you spoke several times before about ideological subversion. That is a phrase that I'm afraid some Americans don't fully understand. When the Soviets use the phrase ideological subversion, what do they mean by it?
Ideological subversion is the slow process which we call either ideological subversion or active measures, активные мероприятия in the language of the KGB, or psychological warfare. What it basically means is to change the perception of reality of every American to such an extent that despite of the abundance of information, no one is able to come to sensible conclusions in the interests of defending themselves, their families, their community, and their country. It's a great brainwashing process which goes very slow, and it's divided in 4 basic stages. The first.
So right here he goes into further, which is also expressed in the book, that the KGB, let's see, I could flip it open for us. 4 parts, which he goes in the book. I think it would just be much better served in the book. Also, I flashed that YouTube video so you could just watch the rest of it, but it really shines some light on how we are still at war today, even though we have been at peace for a long time for America. Threats are still at our doorstep. This was a very powerful chapter. Also, Stefan Aarnio has created 3 other books, all 3 of which I really am looking forward to reading next. One of which especially is The Oracle, where this first book is more so about men. The last book in the series is going to be about women. I recommend everyone to read this book. I think it's an awesome read, man or woman, but don't worry, because the girls get their own book too.